So I'm joined today by the three co-authors of this incredible new book that's due to come out on the 24th of June this year called Personalities Remixed. And the co-authors are Lewis Senior, Mark Wilkinson, and Paul Grant. I'm going to tell you just a quick bit about the book as well. What if the key to personal and professional success was already inside you, just waiting to be understood? Well, in this book, Personalities Remixed, they've combined decades of global leadership coaching and human performance expertise to bring you the definitive guide to using the e-colors and personal intervention for life-changing results. Whether you're a leader, entrepreneur, coach, parent, or partner, or all of the above, this book reveals how understanding and managing your personality style can transform your relationships, improve your decision-making, and elevate every area of your life. Inside of it, you'll discover things like how to identify your own e-colors and what they mean, how to use personal intervention, the pause play buttons, to manage your strengths and potential limiters, and for real life stories as well of transformation through coaching and how to bring the e-colors and personal intervention into your business, teams, or coaching and consulting practice. The pathway to becoming a certified e-colors practitioner and helping others remix their lives. Unlock the code to human behavior and remix your life with this incredible book. And I'm very excited today to have all three of the authors here. Going to be asking them a few questions about the book. So let's go straight into what I always like to start with, which is the why about the book. So Mark, question for you. Let's go straight to the heart of it. Why did you write Personalities Remixed?
My personal take on that is that actually writing Personalities Remixed is a natural progression following on from Life and Money Remixed. Personalities Remixed is the natural progression to that. When I first wrote Life Remixed, Lewis Senior, my co-author here on this book, approached me and said, can I have a read of it? He read it over a weekend, loved the message, and actually then said, can I write a foreword to the book? And I was, of course, very happy for that. Lewis and I had known each other quite closely for some years through different connections and different meetings. And I was really honoured actually that Lewis wanted to contribute a foreword to Life Remixed. From there, we talked about embedding e-colors into my Life Remixed coaching program. And again, it just seemed like such an easy fit. And I knew the advantages of knowing my own e-colors and personality diversity. So therefore, I thought what a great opportunity to use it as a foundational piece of the Life Remixed coaching program. So the purpose of writing Personalities Remixed is the natural progression and also the 21 years now of amazing work that Equilibria have done in high risk industries and so many other places, including sports teams and education. Putting that all into one piece of work, one book, to give the reader the full understanding of all the things we like to talk about and explain and send out to the world and about, well, this is the advantages of using Equilibria as e-colors over any other tools. It's all there in one place. And having co-authored it with these two amazing co-founders of Equilibria, I think it's a brilliant read and I cannot wait. I'm literally so looking forward to the 24th of June and the rest of this year when people actually get to read it.
Excellent. As a fellow author, I know how exciting it is to launch a book. So this is going to be a very exciting launch. Lewis, who would you say this book is for? Who's going to benefit the most from this book?
I think there's a broad spectrum of people who are going to benefit from it. First of all, leaders at all levels, people from the C-suite, frontline supervisors, and emerging leaders. People who are just starting off on their leadership journey can gain a lot. Team members who want to work better together. I mean, there's a lot of work being done around understanding how better teams work when they all understand each other's e-colors and all of the strengths and potential limiters around that. And then again, as people will read in the book, educators, there's a lot of effort gone into making sure that we're covering what we've done in schools, coaches, facilitators, safety and human performance professionals for sure. There's a lot of the book is dedicated to how the e-colors actually impact how people can work safely and get back to their families in one piece. We also are practitioners, which is a growing amount of people that we have around the world. They will certainly benefit. And actually, ultimately, anyone interested in personal growth, personal development, this book is ideal.
Brilliant. And Paul, what would you say the main benefits are of understanding your e-colors, and probably more importantly, understanding other people's e-colors?
I would say there's probably six benefits that immediately come to mind. The first one would be self-awareness, and obviously the benefit in knowing your e-colors helps you understand your natural strengths, potential limiters, and default behaviors, especially when you're under stress. The second benefit would be the awareness of others. Knowing other people's e-colors helps you understand their natural strengths and potential limiters, and also their default behaviors when under stress. Thirdly, I would say improved communications. Recognizing other e-colors helps you tailor your communication to their preferences. Then I would say there's the strong teamwork and collaboration. Understanding team members' e-colors helps in resolving conflicts and leveraging strengths. Fifth, I would say there's personal intervention. The concept of personal intervention refers to pausing or playing, choosing how to act rather than react impulsively based on your personality styles. And then the sixth benefit I would say is the leadership effectiveness. Leaders who understand e-colors can better motivate, guide, and coach others by understanding the lens they view things through. And those are the immediate benefits I would see.
If I may add to that, we've shared evidence in the book of all the things that have just been discussed there. There's evidence and testimonials and information from people globally that have been touched by the colours and the work, and the evidence is there from the people sharing, exactly in line with what Lewis and Paul have just shared.
And how has understanding personality diversities changed your own lives? Maybe you could each share a personal moment where personality awareness was a game changer for you.
I'm happy to go first on that one. I'm really interested to hear from the others as well. But first for me, I was an out of work DJ going through his own life remix at around 40 years of age. A friend of mine, I was going into safety, and a friend of mine said, have a look at this personality diversity indicator, because we use it on the oil rigs. And it's all around safety and personality. And I was like, okay, didn't know anything about it. 15-minute questionnaire online. And it came back with results that were yellow over blue. And at the time, yellow, I understood now, was socializer. Well, that fits in perfectly with that kind of DJ lifestyle, being a big socializer. And the blue, very much the empathy and the feeling. And I often say that music is the sound of emotion. So yellow over blue would make sense for me as that person who was involved in music to the level that I was at that time, in my early career, as you can see on the wall there. No, there. My first report came out and it said, you love life, you love people. I'm like, yeah. Then it said you like parties. It said you're likely musically orientated. And I'm reading this thing going like, whoa, hang on a minute. I've just done this little questionnaire for 15 minutes and you've just described how I've spent the last 20 years of my life in line with my personality style. And I remember reading this thing and going, how does this work? How's that possible? It's like some sort of magic. And I was hooked. I was fascinated straight away. Then it started to talk about how you could get hurt, what makes it difficult to stop a job or speak up. As I was going into a safety career, that was very important as well. But the other part to my yellow-blue report, the first thing, it said your personality style could get you hurt, maimed, or killed by jumping in to help someone else without thinking. Now, it's because it was started in a high-risk environment. And that was good advice for someone like me in a high-risk environment. But I thought about it in my day-to-day life, which is not necessarily a high-risk environment. And I thought, that's exactly what I do. I jump in and help everybody, even if they're not wanting my help. I'm there. I mean, I'm helping. Yeah. Oof, And I thought about my early life, and I thought about my family and my friends, and and sometimes I'm not even necessarily at the time qualified to help, but I think I'm helping. And I just remember thinking, like, my goodness, this is amazing. And then it started to talk about personal intervention. And as a music man, it started to talk about play and pause, which we have on our wristbands here. And that play and pause, as a music person, Paul, you know yourself, we spend all day, every day, playing and pausing on records and decks and vinyl and CDs and MP3s now. I was like, yeah, I'm hooked. I'm into this. This is so good. So I've got a play and pause button, have I? Okay. And here's my strengths. And here's some potential limiters. And actually, yeah, I can see where I play and possibly overplay some strengths. and I can see where there's some potential limiters that I need to perhaps pause and work with. And it works for every personality style. That's the thing. It's not just in my story in yellow, blue, now yellow, red. It's every different one of the personality styles has strengths, has potential limiters, and has the opportunity to use personal intervention. And that was the moment that I was in. And ever since then, I've just kept bugging Lewis and now Paul to end up that we're working together and now co-authoring a book. I mean, what sort of magic is this? So yeah, wonderful.
And Lewis, let's hear from you, please, if you don't mind.
Everything he just said, minus the music. So I actually, again, I mean, I was fortunate enough to be involved right at the beginning when we really were looking at how do people get themselves, just as Mark described, hurt, maimed, and killed. My background is oil and gas. Saw way too many people getting hurt, maimed, or killed, actually, in my early career. I could never put my finger on what we're missing. So in terms of the key moment, as you're asking, it was really the day that I sat down with a crew in Nigeria, actually, and somebody said to me, you know, we've already looked a little bit about personality styles. What are we actually missing? And somebody said, why don't you ask us how we can get hurt? And as it happened, just as Mark was describing, it was actually somebody who's predominantly yellow blue who said jumping in to help. And that just started to set alarm bells off in my head when I realized we'd actually been missing that altogether. And it really all stemmed from there. I predominantly as a yellow red, probably have a bit more red in me than Mark does. I also, when people say, oh, Lewis, you're a workaholic, I go, no, I'm actually a helpaholic. I, again, love to help people. And the only way I know how to manage that is to use the pause and play button. And I think a lot of people, when they go through the book, they'll find themselves in there. Paul, I think that's something that most people, as they work their way through the book, there is something in there for everybody. And Personality Remix really is just that. You know, there are things that will make more sense to some than others, but overall, everybody will understand that, wow, this is something that I can use in my life, not only at work, but also at home. And I think that's going to be very valuable for people.
It's very exciting. And I too have been inspired by the play pause thing. I've recently got a tattoo of my pause and play buttons. But let's hear from you, Paul, please.
Yeah, I would say one a personal moment that really stands out for me is I'm a red green, so a very task focused person. I have a young son who's coming up for 10 years old, and he's a blue yellow. So again, a very people focused person. But just by me understanding his strengths and potential limiters, and also my son understanding more about my strengths and potential limiters, our relationship just gets stronger and stronger every day, and it's really, you know, it's encouraging to see it.
Let's look at the framework of the book. So Lewis, talk us through the e-colors system. What actually does red, yellow, green, and blue represent, and why those colors?
Okay, well, they're primary colors, and they're pretty well understood by everybody in the world. I think it's worth understanding a little bit about the history. I mean, we say quite often, as you can well imagine, we did not invent personality styles. Personality styles have been around for thousands of years, dating way back, actually, I think, to the Chinese, who described the four basic personality styles as earth, wind, fire, and water. Through the ages, different people have looked at it in different ways. When we first developed the whole idea of helping people understand themselves and others through a personality perspective, we wanted to have something that was very much, as a lot of people call it, sticky, memorable, and relatable. And so if you think about the four quadrants, go back to earth, wind, fire, and water, we all have all of these four personality styles within us. The red in us, that tends to represent the action-oriented side of us. That's the more doing side of us, if you like. And we all have that within us, some more than others. And interestingly, from a communication perspective, not uncommon when people got that red in them or the red comes out, they want to know what. You know, tell me what to do and let me get on with it. Or let me tell you what to do and you get on with it. The green in us, which is also just as important, that tends to be the analytical, data-driven side of us. The more green in someone, the more likely they are striving perfection or their perception of perfection. They like a lot of information, and like the top color red, tend to be quite independent. So people who are predominantly red or green as a top color, or both, they tend to be quite independent, quite happy to work on their own. The other side of it, a little bit like Mark was describing, and you may say that red and green, green, red tend to be less emotional. They will make decisions based on facts, data, pieces of information, rather than what feels right. On the other side, we have the yellow and the blue. The yellow tends to be the socializing side of it, tend to be quite energetic, tend to be quite optimistic, very typically quite social, like to be around other people. And the question, whereas the red tends to ask what, and the green tends to ask how, the yellow in us wants to know who's going to be there, who's going to be involved, who's going to be impacted. And the blue in us tends to be the relator or the supporter. Very kind of steady, calm, don't make quick decisions, like to think things through, and typically are very much interested in a kind of team environment. So whereas the red and green, green, red tend to be quite independent, people who've got more yellow, blue, blue, yellow in them tend to be more interdependent. They'll be looking to work with and accompany other people. People who are predominantly red, yellow, yellow, red tend to be fast-paced and typically kind of big picture oriented, not too interested in the detail. Whereas people who've got more green, blue, blue, green in them tend to be more information oriented and steadier paced. And this is where it starts to get interesting, Paul, as will come out in the book in lots of instances, because if people who are predominantly highly independent, action oriented, big picture don't provide the right amount of information to people who are more information oriented and like to think things through and process them, then things aren't going to go well. And so by understanding all of these personality styles, that's when the harmony begins, and that's where great results will come.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I love it. And Paul, why do you think people resonate so strongly with this model? Is it simplicity or accuracy, or is it something else?
I would say it's simple enough to grasp with the color association concerning the four main personality styles: the red, the green, the yellow, and the blue. It's accurate enough to relate with, and it's practical enough to change lives. So it's a very simple system.
And question for you, Mark: can people be a mix of different e-colors, and can those colors evolve over time as we grow?
Yeah, absolutely. So e-colors, we start with 25% of everything, and we do the questionnaire, and then we get our percentages later down the track when we get our initial reports. From our initial reports, we can see the percentages of, generally most people tend to lead with their top two. Certainly from my perspective, started as a yellow blue that I mentioned earlier, now a yellow red, but it's only a couple of percentage shift. It's 26 red, 25 blue now. So I can sometimes be just as much a yellow blue as I can be a yellow red. And it depends on percentages. And we can all reach all of them. My green, my detail, my analytical is my lowest score. It's 9%. Doesn't mean I can't go there. It's just harder to. It's harder to, and I can be coached and I can learn and study. I do have a master's in leadership and a chartered member of IOS, so I can do detail when I need to, but it's more challenging for me than, say, this, when we're just conversing and socializing and talking about, a book as an example. So, we can all change at different times. We can all dip into areas at different times. And quite often when it's all calm and everything's nice and relaxed, we'll have our top two e-colors and all of our e-colors working in different percentages. But when things get stressful, when there's deadlines, stressful moments, we can quite often go to our top e-colors even quicker, and we can quite often go into the potential limiters of those e-colors. And the skill of coaching and the skill of myself, Lewis, Paul, Equilibria, and this book is to show people that, so they understand themselves and then understand on the areas they could choose to focus on. And the key point to being a happy person in a happy life is living in your strengths and managing your potential limiters. If you can live in your strengths, you'll generally be more effective, more productive, and ultimately the tagline of people first and then realizing potential. People can realize their potential when they understand themselves and their strengths and potential limiters. I know when I'm going into some of my potential limiters, and I know there can be a frustration for other people. So thankfully, I have a pause button, and I do everything in my power to make sure that I manage that. Because at the end of the day, this is a team. You're successful in a team, no matter what you're doing, a family, work, whatever it is. It's a team effort. So to be successful, it's important to live in the strengths.
And Lewis, can you begin to notice other people's colors? You've been doing this a long time now. So when you see people, can you almost predict what color they are before they tell you?
So there's some signs that we can pick up very quickly. But I do want to just say straight away, we developed a set of ethics very early on when we started working with Equilibria, because we did not want people guessing people's e-colors, and we certainly didn't want them telling, oh, you must be A, all right? I would say to people who are very familiar with their e-colors, and that doesn't take long, you're not going to stop yourself guessing. The key is just don't say anything. Having said that, clearly, when you watch people, when you interact with them, you'll see the different styles, the different propensities that come out very quickly. So again, for people who are top color red, for example, they tend to be highly decisive. They don't talk a lot typically. They're more, just like Paul was saying, tend to be action oriented. They will come up with this what. If you start hearing what a lot, that's going to be significant to that particular top color. If somebody is how asking a lot of questions, maybe more questions than you feel is needed, but for them it's important, there's probably some green in there. The yellows tend to be the socializer and huggers, so no problem hugging others, whereas some people hate it, so that needs to be understood. And the top color blues, which I think a lot of time is the least understood e-color, I think is worth understanding that they always want to know why. And until they've been provided the purpose, they're really not going to move forward. And interesting, with the work we've done in education, the educators will tell us children till about the age of 7 will always ask why, regardless of their e-color. But if they're not getting the answer, they will stop unless they're top color blue, and they will continue to ask. So there are lots of signals which are all very evident when you read the book. And I think people will be a lot clearer about understanding how to communicate with the different personality styles once they've read the book.
Yeah. And actually putting personality into action in everyday life. Paul, where does personality really matter the most? Is it leadership, love, parenting, business, coaching? Which of those would you say?
I would say personality matters most wherever people interact, influence, and grow together. So, the higher the emotional stakes, the more it matters.
And Mark, how can knowing someone's e-colors or personality style change how you speak to them or motivate them or manage them?
So, I think when we're younger, potentially, you asked earlier about can things change? Yes, they can change, and they can change naturally. You naturally get more experienced. The purpose of coaching or having a coach is to get there quicker. If you can do something in 1 year rather than 5 years, then let's get it done in 1 year. That kind of style. So, the question of understanding the people that are coming into my coaching program, as an example, it does change how I speak to them and motivate them and manage them, because once they understand their e-colors and I understand their e-colors, we look at the premium report, we look at their percentages, we spend a couple of hours debriefing that so I understand them better, and then I understand the best way to communicate to them. Back in the old days when I was young, I was like, full steam ahead, top color yellow, why isn't everyone like me, and not really understanding why they weren't. But now I coach people of all different e-colors globally, actually, from Australia right across to America, and each person always has their own personality style. And I tailor my approach to them. So like Lewis was saying earlier about top color greens, they need to know how. They want the data. They want, how do I do that? Okay, well, let's start there, because that satisfies them. And then we can start to build on that. Blues, why? Why are we doing something? Why is this important? Why is it beneficial? okay, let's start there and then tailor my communication to them as well. So, I can use my yellow, my inspirational, my engagement still, but it's managed, I believe, better than when I was 20. It's managed to an extent that I can then communicate with that person in the way they need to be communicated with so that they understand things. It can't just be my way and full steam ahead. It's got to be tailored. And it's something that's stood me in good stead as a coach, as a safety professional, now as an author, understanding those communication styles. And when I don't practice that, and I still can pop up from time to time, even though I've been studying this for 15 years or more. When I don't, I see it. And like Lewis said, sometimes the communication doesn't go right. And I'm like, oh, damn it. I see what I just did, and it gets less and less and you get more and more experience, but it takes time, effort, commitment, and wanting to learn.
And touching on your book, one of your books that you've got behind you, Life Remixed, you talk always about remixing your life. How does knowing your personality style play into that transformation journey?
Anyone who doesn't understand what a remix is when you get given the parts of a musical track with all the vocals separated and the bass line and the piano and the drum, and you get everything separated, and then you take the parts that you like and then you make something new that becomes the Mark Wilkinson remix or whoever's doing the remix, and you put your own pieces into that, and you make a new track, and that's the remix. And there's remixes done of all kinds of pop and house and all kinds of records. Well, what I learned was that you can do the same with a human being, and I started with myself, and now I just do that with others because it's such a joy to be in this work, a privilege actually. Is I help other people remix their lives. So first of all, they need to have the original, if you like, the original version of them, which is their e-colors, their report. And they look at their premium report and they say, okay, yeah, I understand, that's the original. And then you start to think about things that you would like to be better at, strengths, let's manage them, not overplay them, but let's make sure we're working for them and working with them. Potential limiters of managing them. But then also you can look at the strengths in the other, maybe your third and fourth e-color percentages, as I did as a yellow over blue. I looked at red and went, I need to be more decisive if I'm going to succeed in certain areas. And I just practiced deciding. And I've become a very decisive individual that gets things done without being so emotional in my yellow over blue. So that's how it helps remix people's lives. It helps them take themselves and accept themselves. Your e-colors report makes it okay to be you, first and foremost. And then it gives you the opportunity to go, okay, well, there's all these other personality styles, and how am I going to interact with them, help them, add value to them? And it's a never-ending journey, and it's just a fantastic thing to do for yourself, for your loved ones. My wife and I are both big e-colors champions and happy together 12 years in, despite having completely different personality styles. And the e-colors played a huge part in that. Otherwise, there could have been frustrations. There could have been, oh, why do you want all the details? Why are you not listening to me, Mark? That kind of thing. But it's not that. It's actually, okay, Mark, can you dip more into your green? Emma, can you dip more into your yellow? And it really does help communication and allows people to get to where they'd like to get to quicker.
It's brilliant. It's a great concept. Lewis, you've worked in corporate in high risk spaces. Where have you seen personality styles make the biggest difference in performance in particular?
Well, on two levels. First of all, in the corporate setting, personality styles make such a big difference when it comes to strategic alignment and actually when execution is required. Because, as corporations move along their own journey, they need to bring their people with them, and many times in multinational settings. And so if they can provide a framework for the people to understand each other a little bit along the way, that certainly helps. And so we've done a lot of work with organizations that literally have over 100 different nationalities working with them, and the common language is the e-colors. And you can see that throughout. So again, as there's a lot of change going on in industries today, for example, providing what are we going to be doing going forward? How are we going to do it? On the safety side, it's been the most phenomenal journey. I have to say that when we introduce the e-colors, personal intervention, and the associated tools into an organization, it is quite dramatic to see their reduction in incidents and worse. And that's something that we're very, very proud of. And actually, we're continual to be striving to take that into more organizations. Again, some parts of the book are dedicated to that because we're, I think, the only organization in the world that actually looks how can people get hurt, maimed, and killed from a personality perspective.
And Paul, you work with a lot of creatives and entrepreneurs. What personality challenges come up again and again that you've noticed?
I would say there's probably four examples that immediately spring to mind. The first would be impatience and control, often shown by red-yellow personality styles. You know, they're big picture thinkers, want results fast, and they can sometimes bulldoze others or overlook important details. They may struggle with delegation or trusting slower paced team members. But obviously, having the e-colors and personal intervention allows them to manage that. Another example would be overcommitment, often displayed by the yellow reds. You know, their enthusiasm drives innovation, you know, but they often start more than they'll finish. They thrive on ideas, but, you know, execution requires grounding, structure, and sometimes collaboration with other personality styles such as the blues and greens. Another example would be the avoidance of conflict or tough conversations. You know, often displayed by the green blues or blue greens. Some, you know, creatives are highly sensitive or idealistic. You know, great for empathy and artistry, but, you know, they may avoid confrontation or difficult feedback. And, you know, that this can create bottlenecks in business growth or strained teams when tough calls aren't made. And the final example would be, you know, I'm not a people person. You know, you often see this with the red greens or the green reds. You know, some are often in people avoidance mode. Great for getting tasks done on their own, but, you know, struggle to interact with people, and as a result, can often miss out on opportunity. Those would be four examples I've seen many times.
And Mark, can you share a success story, if you will, or give me an example of a team relationship or client where understanding e-colors personality styles changed everything?
How long have you got? I think that it's trying to find, you know, one is incredible because it's literally hundreds of thousands of people have been affected in a positive way by this, you know, and continue to be. In fact, 1.4 million times the questionnaire has been taken on the Equilibria website over the years, which is amazing, you know, and we want to continue to grow that because we see the benefits. I've got three examples in companies, actually, just quickly. The first one, I did a session in Dubai recently to a great company, about 30 or so safety professionals, and it really brought home the power of personality diversity to me. There was Indian people in the room, there was Middle Eastern people in the room, there was African people, there was European people in the room. They all did the questionnaire. You can do it in multiple languages. There's lots of language options. They all did it. They all got their e-colors. We carried out a normal session. But Emma and I, before the session, were like sort of looking at each other going, I'm not sure how this is going to go. You know, it's interesting. Let's go. Let's see what happens. It was incredible, Paul, honestly, you know, to see a group of diverse, you know, global individuals be together in the same room and literally just start to bond. You know, I went to the yellow group for a little while and there was 3 Indian lads in there. And, you know, we're separated by, I don't know, 12 hours of flights and different, you know, long drives, and they're from little villages and stuff. And here I am from Southwest London. And yet, you know, it's just common ground. Yeah, I do that. Oh, yeah. My wife says I do that, you know, that kind of thing. But it was really useful. And then bringing the safety element in about how you can get hurt, what makes it difficult to speak up and stop the job, those kind of things. It was a beautiful experience, and one that I'm going to be repeating again with the same company shortly, I believe. Another one, a UK safety team. We've done multiple sessions with them. And they have a common language now. They have a common language how they can communicate with one another. Yeah, there was people in the room that didn't like another person because they weren't like them, and they didn't get them. And then once we'd done the e-colors, he literally just brought that team together. And they, you know, the one particular guy, he's the top color red, and he you know, he didn't, his message didn't always land very well because there was lots of blues and greens in that team. And once we put the communication guides in front of them and gave them the opportunity to speak more openly about their personality, everyone started to get it. And it was just fantastic. And the common language is now embedded with them, and they can use that going forward, which is wonderful. And another one, we've recently trained a company's apprentices, a large intake of all of their apprentices to help them. And when you see 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds start to get this, you know, I don't have regrets. I often look back and wonder if my life had been different if I'd have been introduced to e-colors at 10 or 15 or 20 rather than almost 40, because they are already a more harmonious team, and they're young people and they get it. They get it easier often than the adults. To see that is marvelous, is wonderful. And then actually with the one-to-one coaching clients that I work with, they all get their e-colors at the start, but there are more and more amounts of them that want to become e-colors practitioners and are becoming e-colors practitioners. And the way they're doing that is I train them to do that, and they can then take that message, the way the e-colors has affected them positively, they can then take that out to their networks and their people and their clients, and they can use it, because this is not our show. This is actually a human performance show. This is for them to, you know, if you're interested in this subject and you want to help people, this is one of the tools in your toolkit to get a hold of and work with. It does have a huge and incredibly positive effect. So
inspirational. Lewis, what's the most surprising result you've seen from someone applying what they've learned? And is it in the book?
So I think, just picking up on what Mark's saying, you know, again, having been doing this for nearly a quarter of a century, it never ceases to amaze me. And that's the privilege of what we do, is the fact that people are always going to get something out of what we're offering. When we actually put the book together, I want to say we've got over 60 different people who've come up with their own anecdotes and stories about something that happened, you know, to them that has made a difference to them. I'll give you a couple of examples when we talk about. I don't know. I wouldn't say it's a surprise, but it's an absolute pleasure to have witnessed. I've had the privilege of working with a lot of very, very smart people who work for an oil company, actually, particularly on the technical side of things. And often when people are highly technically competent, you know, SMEs, people who are real subject matter experts around all kinds of different perspectives, so sometimes they are very, very good. They're individual contributors, but they may actually not, you know, be the first people to be picked for a leadership role. And then once in a while, somebody will get picked and they really aren't even sure they want to do it. In fact, one scientist told me, he said, Lewis, you're passionate about people. I'm passionate about molecules. You know, two completely different pieces of the pie. However, every time the creative development people got together, this individual's name consistently came up. Very, very, very bright, actually predominantly green-red, super intelligent, a worldwide expert in what he did. And when they would talk through, the HR people go, should we promote him? It was always, well, he's really good technically, but he's not very good with people. Fortunately, had a great leader who said, Lewis, if you think you can work with him, please do so. My comment's always the same. You can coach somebody if they want to be coached, if they're open-minded enough to be coached, which he was. Over a 2-year period, I worked with this person. He did really well. He became a team lead and then actually got promoted again. And what was interesting was there was a particular job that would have made him move across the country, had lots of intricate details into how this was all going to work. And he called me excited about 2 years after we got started. He said, Lewis, I've just had the most remarkable thing happen to me. I said, what's that? He said, the person who interviewed me from HR said, we know you're really good with people. Do you have any technical abilities at all? and that's probably one of the biggest moves I've seen in an individual. You know, again, in the book, I can tell you we took a load of kids up to where the USA women's water polo team were training for the Olympics that were going to be in London. They had got silver in China, and that same team had got together for London. And when we ran the e-color session for them, just like Mark was saying, sometimes you have people who are banging heads. And the reason is because either they're very similar or they're very much not similar. And in this case, when we sat down with the team pre-London Olympics, it was two of the young ladies who were predominantly red-yellow. And the moment they realized it was their red-yellow attributes that were causing friction, they went from quite openly, being argumentative with each other to high-fiving. And they went on to win the gold, for which we take all the credit.
Wow.
But you can, seriously, but you can imagine the impact that has on a team. And again, Paul, we could spend the next 24 hours on all of the different situations we've seen along the way. A lot of them are in the book.
Yeah, excellent. Can't wait to read this. I'm so excited for it. Paul, what advice would you give someone who resists being put in a box, as you would say, when it comes to personality diversity?
I would say e-colors are certainly not about boxing you in. They're about giving you tools to understand how you naturally operate. So, you can expand beyond your default behaviors and not be limited by them. So there's sort of 4 pieces of advice I would give. It's a starting point. It's not a label. The second point would be it's about awareness. It's not about judgment. The third point, you're not locked into e-colors. You are who you are. And everyone should accept that. And the fourth piece is, it helps you understand others. So those are the 4 pieces of advice I would give.
And let's do some quick fire questions for a bit of fun. So, Mark, give me one thing that a red should never say to a green.
Just get on with it. Potentially. I'd like to hear Paul Grant's answer as well to this one, if I may, because I think it's important from the red perspective. Paul, what would you say to that?
So what a red shouldn't say to a green: hurry up.
Yeah. And we do a lot on psychological safety, and psychological safety, a top color green particularly has lots of questions because they're trying to get all the data into their mind so they can understand and then do their work. And fast-paced red in this instant, in the example you've given, Paul, or fast-paced yellow, if we don't respect the top color green's questions and we're just telling them to hurry up, come on, got to get on with it, yellow, red, yellow, go. If we're not respecting that question, that person who's top color green, who has great strengths as well, they will not feel psychologically safe. And if they don't feel psychologically safe, you're not going to get the best possible result out of that person. And that's such a key message to understand.
Paul, if you don't mind, I'd like to give you an anecdote here when you're thinking about this hurry up. So we do still do a lot of work in schools. And I will say that for me, one of the greatest pleasures I get is when I go to an elementary school and watch 7 or 8-year-olds who've already got it. They understand the e-colors. And I distinctly remember I was actually with a lady who used to be our CEO of e-colors in education, who was predominantly yellow-red, very, very fast-paced. And we were in a classroom. I was actually sitting next to a young man at the back who's predominantly blue-green. Blue-greens typically are quite reticent to speak up, and also like to think about things before they actually do speak up. So this lady, she had a kind of picture of a brain at the front of the room, and she was just quick fire questions, just like you're saying. So said to one of the top color red kids, what's one of the strengths of a top color red? Oh, decisive, this, that, and the other. She turned around to this child who was sitting next to me, who's a top color blue, and said, what would you think is a potential limiter of a top color blue? And he did what any blue does anywhere in the world. His eyes went to the ceiling because the answer's up there somewhere. And because the answer wasn't coming fast enough, the lady who was running the session turned to somebody else to ask the same question. And all of the kids in the class went, hold on, he's thinking. Now, imagine if you could pull, and that's at 7 or 8 years old. Imagine the impact that has later on in their lives.
And a quick one for you, Lewis. What would you say yellow energy is in one word if you had to sum it up?
Optimistic. I would say now I'm 74 years old, realistically optimistic.
And one for you, Paul. What breaks a blues trust instantly?
I would say inconsistency, broken promises, or a lack of integrity. Blues value honesty, reliability, and depth. So, their trust is often built slowly, but can be lost very, very quickly.
And Mark, which e-color is most likely to ghost you and why?
So this is an ideal opportunity to mention the difference between personality and character. When we use an iceberg analogy for that, personality is the tip of the iceberg of the human being. It's the bit that we see, it's the bit where we react from most, whereas actually the bit beneath the waterline is our character, the way we've been brought up, the beliefs, our learnings, a lot more depth of that human being. Personality is not the entire human being, it's part of it, as part of us. So the answer to your question, if I was to give a straight answer, I would say probably top color blue. And the answer for that is that they will withdraw if they don't feel valued or they don't feel understood or they're not psychologically safe and therefore able to speak up or feel that they can't speak up. They're most likely just to withdraw from the situation. And it can be, to be honest, not just top color blue, but anyone with a higher blue percentage is likely to sometimes pull back and withdraw. As a yellow blue, I used to do that at times. As a yellow red, I do not. And I think that's the key point, to understand our emotions. Our emotions, which is our blue, our feeling, is very much the piece that we will either go in with or withdraw from. But understanding personality and character is something that, and like Paul said, not putting people into boxes is very, very much a part of our work. And that's really clear in the book.
And one for all of you. Describe each of you in color order. So red, yellow, green, blue. Who fits what in this team?
So my colors in order. I'm a red, followed by green, followed by blue, followed by yellow. In the team, I look after the financial and the legal and the administration side of the company. I would describe it at times of like herding cats, trying to keep everyone on a schedule and moving forward.
That's what happened. That's what happened when you give Paul a poke, right?
Yeah.
I love that.
Money Remix was a tough one, and Personalities Remixed was tougher.
And that's funny. If I may go next, my role, I'm yellow, first socializer, engagement, optimistic, inspirational, that kind of stuff, or at least I like to think so. Red, I do like to get things done. Blue, I have lots of empathy for people. I want people to succeed. My green is my potential limiter. It's the lack of attention to detail that I can come unstuck with. My role in this team is to spread the good word, is to coach as many people as possible, connect with as many people as possible, which I've done all my life naturally anyway, without even knowing my personality style, but connect with as many people as possible and share what we do with people. And I've used books to do that. Personalities Remix came about because Paul put a structure in place, and then Lewis and I brought our high yellow energy and created it and put more into it so that it became a piece of work that appeals to everybody. And it's an amazing piece of work. Every one of us has put something really strong into this book, and it becomes something that I know all three of us and the rest of the members of Equilibria and all of the practitioners will be able to use as something that they can then get more in depth with and then share with others. And so for us, it's a very interesting and a time that we're most enthusiastic about right now.
And Lewis?
Yeah, my e-colors are predominantly yellow, red, followed by green, and my lowest e-color is actually blue. I have the privilege of being the CEO of Equilibria, which is, we started back in 2004, Paul and I and a couple of other people, and it has been the most remarkable journey. I love what we do. I think that the book to me is it's another labor of love, if you like. I think we've got a lot to share. We have a lot of experience in helping people get to what they want to achieve, and that's not the same for everybody. Everybody has their own goals in life, but I truly believe, and that's repeated to us one way or another nearly every day. You cannot not benefit from understanding yourself and others better, be it in a family situation, social situation, or a work situation. And with everything that's going on in the world today, You can hear program after program about how people actually communicate less and less. They're all too busy, on their phones or whatever. It's probably more needed now than ever to understand that, a lot of people will tell you the e-colors is the key to universal communication. And I think I'd like to say we've done a pretty good job in this book of satisfying the red, the green, the yellow, and the blue. There is something in there for everybody, and really looking forward to seeing the results of the efforts.
And just a quick reminder, this incredible book comes out on Tuesday, the 24th of June. Make sure you've got that date in your diaries. Paul, what would you say is the most misunderstood color out of the e-colors?
Now, I believe a lot comes down to your individual e-colors and how you relate to other e-colors. So for myself, my yellow is my lowest percentage. So sometimes I struggle with yellows. Yellows are energetic, enthusiastic, social, idea-driven. They're often misjudged as superficial, scattered, or a lack of follow-through. Especially by more structured types, such as greens and reds. But for me, the truth is, yellows, their passion is a strength, not a lack of focus. They're often natural motivators, connectors, and visionaries who just need help with structure and follow through.
And a quick question from me as well. I'm just noticing between the four of us, there's no top color blue in any of us. Is that kind of a normal thing that you guys have noticed, or?
So it depends on the industry and the setting, but I actually want to just pick up on what Paul said. I think certainly in business, the least understood e-color is probably top color blue, and yet they represent a huge proportion of the workforce. And again, if you look at a procedure, for example, most procedures are written as here's what to do and here's how to do it. And there's very little explanation about why. So the moment you don't do that, you've already lost a lot of the people that you very much need on board. So the people who understand blues the most are blues. And for everybody, like you say, who haven't got a lot of blue, it's something we need to be very, very mindful of, which again, actually, I think comes out nicely in the book, and begin to see that how important it is that people get what they need. In other words, treat people as they need to be treated.
And wrapping up this hour, Mark, what do you want the reader to take away from this? What do you want them to feel after reading Personalities Remixed?
There's so much, Paul. It's such a beautiful read, honestly. Like Lewis said, Personalities Remixed is a labour of love. It's an amazing collaboration between all of us. I want them to feel inspired. I want them to feel knowledgeable, more knowledgeable than they started with, because a lot of people go, oh yeah, personality diversity, I know that, or colours, I know that. Yeah, I know that. This book is going to give people a level of depth that they won't have had before. And it's a beautiful piece of work. I also want them to feel included. Like Lewis said, I think we've covered everything for everybody. I want them to feel valued. I want them to understand they have value and they can bring that to the table no matter what their personality style. I want them to understand the power of personality diversity for them and those around them, because until you understand it and then take the action to harness it, you can go, oh, I know about that, but you don't really know about it until you really go for it and use it yourself. And I want them to be open-minded and committing to improving themselves, their own situation, their own lives, because my belief is that good people deserve the best. And this is a tool in their toolkit for them to be the best for themselves. And so all of those things are really, really important. I'm so looking forward to people reading it.
Lewis, let's go with you next, please.
Well, everything that Mark has said, I'm not going to repeat it, but I will tell you, when we sat down and formed Equilibria, Paul, John, Bagfin, and myself, one afternoon in 2004, we came up very quickly with a vision of realizing potential and a single core value, which took us some time to agree on, was people first. And this book is all about realizing potential, and it's certainly all about people first. You can't read this book or listen to this book and not understand more than before you started. And I think that's an absolute no-brainer. So really looking forward to seeing how that plays out.
And you, Paul?
I think Lewis said it in one of the other questions that there's something in this book for everyone. And you know what I'd like people to take away is one of those aha moments where they suddenly get it, and I'm sure that'll be the case.
And finally, I touched earlier on the inspiration behind my Play Paul's tattoo was, you know, meeting Mark and listening to all these incredible conversations about this. If Paul, you were going to get any sentence from the book tattooed on your arm, what would it be?
I think there's so many things that stand out in the book. But if I had to pick one quote from the book, you know, it appears in the first few chapters, and it says the ability to connect with people who are different from ourselves is a superpower. It's the key to understanding and embracing diversity. And you know, e-colors and personal intervention, when used correctly, it becomes that superpower.
Thank you, Paul. I'd also like the others to answer this as well. So, Mark, which quote would you have on your arm? Or
surrounded by potential.
Surrounded by
potential all the way down here.
I love that. And Lewis?
Yeah, I was thinking about this for quite a long time. I mean, I do see interesting in schools when kids forgot their wristband. I have seen many of them draw, you know, pause and play on the wrist. I've got the kind of pause and plays embedded in my brain. You know, that's been going on for 20 years. I actually went through the book again last night, and there's a lady called Joni Baird who actually helped us get into lots of different organizations, particularly in the States. And in part of her foreword, she says, to those beginning their equilibrium journey, buckle up. I really think hopefully people will buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Mark, do you want to say something?
Yeah, so Paul, first of all, I'd like to really thank you for doing this interview with us and you know, getting these questions together. We really appreciate you and your time, and particularly your TV screen behind your head there as well. We particularly love that. Otherwise, that's it. We particularly love that. But it's his early days for you on this journey. We've known each other for some years through DJing and music, or known of each other. You know, you've started to come into this journey and join our regular Tuesday calls and things like that. How's it been for you from your perspective, you know, coming into this?
I found it fascinating. It's actually the first time I heard about it when you mentioned it to me about the e-colors, and when you sent me the form to fill out. I guess I was a little bit apprehensive as I was going through it, didn't really know what to expect. But when the actual report came out, I think like a lot of you has touched on in this interview is how accurate it was to your personality and the way you are. That's the bit that fascinated me. And from then I still have so much to learn about what all of the colors mean. One thing that I've got, probably the biggest thing I've got out of it so far is learning to not get so stressed out about other people, because it's now understanding about, you know, that they are potentially another color and they will act in a different way, and I shouldn't let it affect me. You know, that's when I press my pause button, and that's the biggest thing I've kind of taken away from this so far. And I've just loved the people that I've met along the way in your Tuesday Zoom calls, every Tuesday on YouTube and on Zoom. Fascinating people, and it's the diversity of people that it brings together, I think, as well. This the interesting part for me. Looking forward to learning so much more about it all, and the book sounds like it's the answer. This is what I need to do, is to read this book.
Yeah, it's the book is 21 years. Well, touching on the history, actually going back hundreds, if not thousands of years, but 21 years of Equilibria, and you know, the ethical and modern use of the e-colors, you know, that puts us apart from anyone else is really powerful. And I think that when people read this book, and it is a great book and a great read and interesting and factual and everything else you want it to be, but as we've said, you come out of it at the end of it, and you will have all of those moments that we said earlier that we want people to feel. And personally, I can't wait for every single person to get into this, because I think it's going to be a huge win for each person when they read it. So thank you for sharing that, Paul. We really do appreciate that.
No, my pleasure. And just to remind everyone that this book is available on Amazon. Tuesday the 24th of June is the day it comes out. Mark, where do we go to find out more about Equilibria and about each of you individually?
Absolutely. So you go to the Equilibria website, equilibria.com. There's multiple pages and multiple pieces of information on there. You go to discover your e-colors on there, and you find the personality diversity indicator, and you do a short 15-minute questionnaire where you answer 35 questions essentially, and you will find out your e-colors. And you can find them out for free if you want to as well. There's a very basic kind of layout for the top two e-colors. Then there's a basic report you can upgrade to, or indeed a premium report you can upgrade to. And you know, the understanding of what we're sharing helps every human being. So that's a really key thing to do. For me personally, go to markwilkinsonofficial.com. Everything is there on my website. There will be a new Personalities Remixed landing page on there shortly as well. And it's very much about, you know, connecting with us. I mean, you know, we're not hiding, we're everywhere, right? You can connect with us on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and all social media platforms. We are in all of these places because ultimately the message we have is important. It's reached 1.4 million people or more even over the last 20 years. Our goal is that it reaches much further in the next 20 years. And the key point is that if you want to connect with us and you want to talk about this, we are here.
Brilliant. And we will put the links below this video as well. So just click the link below this video when you're watching this back on YouTube. Lewis, how can people connect with you?
Same that Mark has talked about, Equilibria website. Happy to connect on LinkedIn. I've just started a new podcast called The Intentional CEO. Second episode actually came out this morning. I traced back from when I started in 1974 on oil and gas, and there's some really funny and sad stories along the way. So same, any form of social media, drop me a line, lewis.senior@equilibria.com. Call me, smoke signal, whatever you need, just get in touch.
And Paul, we do get back to people. I think that's a key point. When I first discovered the e-colors, I sat down at my computer with my mind a little bit blown, like I spoke earlier, and I went onto Equilibria. I went onto LinkedIn, put in Equilibria. Lewis Senior came up, CEO. I pinged him a message. 2 weeks later, we're having lunch in Heathrow Airport, or having a coffee in Heathrow Airport, because Lewis came straight back to me, and that in itself is worth its weight in gold to every person that we get to connect with. So we always get back to people.
Brilliant. And I can recommend the Intentional CEO podcast. I've listened to a couple of episodes and I've loved it so far. Looking forward to catching up on that. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, again, available on all the social media platforms, and also email addresses are out there. So yeah, get in touch if we can help in any way.
Personalities Remixed is coming Tuesday, the 24th of June. Mark your diaries. And again, we will put the link below if you're watching in this video as well, because you may well be watching this after the 24th of June. So you can grab your copies below.